One-tricking heroes is here to stay. Whether you decide to play as a one-trick or play matchmaking without a full group, undoubtedly when playing ranked, you will be paired up with one-trick players that oftentimes have peculiar skill sets. And although I do personally think it isn't the most friendly way to approach the game to pick whatever hero you want instead of trying to coordinate in order to make a team comp that can work and win, none of that matters when it comes down to you trying to win the game that you're in with teammates picking heroes that you have no control over whatsoever. What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch, and I think this issue is something that many players can overcome to learn how to turn games that they otherwise might have thought were losses into wins. It all comes down to game knowledge of what heroes you can utilize in your hero pool that's going to sync up well with teammates that have a shallower hero pool, and sometimes that requires you to be a bit creative. We've long since wanted to make an all-encompassing team composition video, but it's so dense a subject, it's hard to speak about it without going into massive divergent tangents down every lane that you can imagine. So instead, sometimes it's easier to isolate specific examples of utilizing basic synergies and team composition principles, so when you're trying to construct some sort of Frankenstein monster of a team comp in your own ranked games, you at least have a chance of winning in games that otherwise look like they're going to be a loss from the hero select screen. In this game I'm showing on screen as if it were a cosmic joke. After making videos about Sombra and Torb, I get paired up with both a Torb and a Sombra one trick. It can tilt the rest of your team to have a single one trick, much less having two means that nobody is going to be looking to create any sort of teamwork, but even the lack of teamwork can have its own synergies. Yes, that's the crazy thing about a team comp that looks like it's going nowhere and everyone's going to be playing for themselves. When you look at this hero select screen, it might seem like there is absolutely no answer to be able to synergize with the picks that your teammates have chosen. Now, ideally, I'd like to see a tank, and probably the best tank to synergize with Torb is Orisa, but any tank would have done. But seeing as there's no good healer option either, picking the right hero to do the job here seems like some sort of complicated SAT test. But I end up going with Zenyatta, and I want to explain why. I think one misconception that many players fall into is assuming that a single healer needs to be a strong healer. We can't have a Zen as the main source of healing because his healing is minuscule, right? The reason why that's an assumption is because there's a misconception based upon assuming that teamfights are supposed to extend out for long periods of time. This is a holdover from the Ana meta, where if you didn't have a strong source of healing, you just lost, for the most part, although Zen was used somewhat back then as well. But that's just not really a thing anymore, and also you have to think about Ana's playstyle in the situation that you're giving. You're in a pure deathmatch style comp now. You got DPS picks abound. They're not heroes that are going to be easy for you to access, and without a doubt, your entire team is going to be all over the place if you're trying to heal them as Ana. They won't be in a nice ball for you to hit multiple targets with an anti-nade, and even if you do anti the enemy team, is that really going to be more value than Zenyatta's Discord orb? Well, I don't think so, and I'll explain why. With Torb, he protects the backline quite well. In fact, in my Torb guide I said he's one of the best ways to protect against dive to secure your backline. Well, with that being the case, a character like Zenyatta, which otherwise is kind of a greedy pick actually, because he has no way to defend himself other than just hitting shots, as opposed to Ana, where her value is kind of spread out to incorporate a bit of sustainability on her own part, seeing that she can sleep enemies and also nade herself. Zenyatta is balanced out a little bit more to be more of a risky pick, more of a glass cannon, and because of that, the benefit of having a turret set up on King of the Hill, which is kind of a ludicrous thing to think about, but something that I think possibly could be used legitimately, especially as a countermeasure against the dive meta, either by replacing a support or a DPS, and we do that by utilizing the utility of what Torb brings. The turret allows me as Zenyatta to just be not diveable. No one has to protect me. I don't have to worry about the fact that I don't have tanks if I hold the hand of my turret and make sure that I keep lines of sight on keeping my teammates healed and keeping discords on targets that need to die immediately, particularly punishing tanks, which is normally the thing that can dive me for free and punish me. It's these types of things that you can do in matchmaking that can go a long way. Playing Zen in this way, with the turret set up on the point, meant that the enemy retaking is just a nightmare for them. Zen Discord is such a boon to the team that Zen is one of the top priority dive targets all of the time. But if you just keep Zen alive because you have this really niche bit of utility from Torb present on the map will take advantage of that. Take advantage of a skill set that props up what would otherwise be somewhat flimsy. It enforces each other to enable parts of the comp to shine. It's not about just having enough of each item. It's about figuring out how to leverage each piece of the team comp to create a win condition. And as goofy as it sounds, a pure deathmatch comp is a style of comp. A quick play comp is a thing. It might not be a great thing, it might not be something you want to run all the time, but it is a thing nonetheless. Which is why, despite the fact that I will tell you straight up and down, you should always have a Lucio and King of the Hill. Well, except when your team comp is some sort of motley crew of random assorted items that don't necessarily all fit together. You have to instead, if you want to be the best flex player that you can be, find a hero that fits in the middle and ties as many of them together as possible. It's not always a nice simple answer like that, but although I love playing Lucio on King of the Hill, I think he's insane. In the mid-fight, what would I be doing as Lucio? All my mobility characters are kind of just circling around poking. Sure, I could get them to where they're going a little bit faster, but it's not like I'm moving around slow-moving tanks. I just don't think it would be as good. Also, it wouldn't synergize with the turret, nor does it help damage amp these key duels that we have to win. That's the thing with a DPS-heavy comp. You have to find duel wins. And if you just try to pump healing into these characters, it's not like you're pumping healing into a Ryan who can absorb healing. DPS characters need to definitively win the duel. But again, another example. Here I get paired up with very high-ranked one-trick players playing the combination of Junkrat and Torb, which has such sharp counters, it's laughable that this could ever win. And we almost do lose this game. We get absolutely rolled on defense because we just have blind spots everywhere in the team comp. It's absolutely impossible to cover them all. But again, I'm able to utilize the turret positioning to keep myself alive, have my impact against the characters that counter these one-tricks. Pharah, of course, is insane against both of them, destroys a turret from range, and can shoot Junkrat in angles that he physically can't reach. I mean, that's like such an insane counter. Usually that doesn't even happen in Overwatch, but making sure that I cover their blind spots is like a key to victory. Now, at some point, having assumptions that you need a strong healer no matter what is going to block off your access to being able to understand team comps in a deeper way. Sure, it can be good enough for general rank strategy that if everyone just conforms to the tried and true meta comp, paint by numbers, pick these heroes, and they have natural synergies that work together, the pros have already figured it out, play in a similar way and things should work out for you with the same win condition, that's all well and good. But the problem is in matchmaking, one, there's no guarantee that you even understand as a team of randoms what that win condition is or how to execute it in the situation that you're in anyway. So with that being the case, it's more important to synergize and protect your teammates' blind spots than it is trying to patch the holes in a team comp to try to make it fit into an established meta style. Knowing how to adapt into these situations so you and your team don't just lose the game based on tilt alone will help you win SR in situations where you otherwise would lose it. It's a good thing to strengthen because even when your team comps aren't this drastic, you can start to think about theorizing how all the comps possible in the game interact. Now, really, right now, there's only like one or two that are viable at a given time. But before long, I'm confident that a lot of these base assumptions, instead of saying we need a strong healer, instead say a strong healer is good for X, Y, or Z situation against A, B, and C team comp, rather than assuming that there's like a meta standard Overwatch comp that permeates through all the different types of balance changes, new hero additions, all of that. Instead, we can start to develop a more robust understanding of the game, which is essentially how a lot of pro teams do things, at least in Korea they do, and that's why they've been able to sub out one of their supports for a Torb or a Sombra. It's by leveraging their strengths to know how a team comp engages, like you might normally assume that your tank should always be in the battle and your healer should just always be pumping healing into them. Like I explained in my Winston's Don't Need Healing video, well, there's circumstances where that just physically can't be the case. But that comp can still work if you play it differently. It doesn't require you to be engaged constantly, but instead get your value out of your team comp. It's likely we're going to revisit this subject because there's just so many different things to discuss. But for now, I'll leave you with that, and I look forward to reading your comments on what I said here today. If you enjoyed the video and you found it useful, please leave a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description, you can check out our Discord server. You can find ONETRICKS to pair up with and interact with our community. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.